Welcome back to the COSIGN Conversations podcast. I am your guest host, Emily, filling in for KG. And today we have a very special guest, Julian from Adwoa Beauty. We are actually in their beautiful showroom in downtown Dallas. And we're going to talk about all the things beauty, all the things building a product empire, and of course, entrepreneurship. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you because I don't meet a lot of New Yorkers in Dallas, and I just get very, it just warms my heart. But before we jump into all of the gems and all of your success as a businesswoman, take us back. Take us back, coming over when you were about, 2 years old, growing up in New York City. Take us, I guess, like on the journey of, how you ended up becoming a hairstylist and your journey in the beauty industry.
Yeah, well, I was born in West Africa, Liberia, and I immigrated to the US when I was 2 with my mom and my sister. And we settled in Park Hill, which is the Clifton area of Staten Island. Immigrants, they just kind of move with other immigrants. So there was a population of Liberian immigrants moving into that area, and that's where I grew up. I don't know, I feel like New York City hairstylist is normal. I don't feel like my story was that super special being from New York City. Growing up in the 90s, it was also like the dance hall era of reggae, and like salons were just, hair was just kind of like popping. So when I was in middle school, kind of like towards the 8th grade, I became friendly. I always hung out with people older than me. I never really became friends with people my age. All of my friend group was a little to a lot older than me. So I started hanging around with a girl that did hair in her house. And, it was just, I just was always there. I was always around it. I was always, the New York scene, I just always saw hair. It just was always like intriguing to me. And then I wanted a job, and all my friends now I'm in like going to the 9th grade, which is high school in New York City, and everyone was working in my friend group, Subways, McDonald's, all of the normal jobs that teenagers work at. But I didn't have a green card, so I couldn't work at those jobs. And I wanted to make money, and that was the Jordans era. Like everyone was buying Jordans and Hirachis and Deion Sanders and all these like fly kicks. In New York, you gotta be fly.
Or you're gonna get bullied.
Yeah. So I was wearing Skips. I don't know if everybody know what Skips are, but they're like the off-brand to the name brand. And I wanted to be cool like everybody else, and I wanted to earn money, and my mom couldn't afford it. She was a single mother, so I was like trying to figure out how can I earn money. And so I started helping my friend do hair, like just putting her rollers in, just kind of any kind of assistance that she would need, and she would pay me like 10, 15, 20 bucks. And then I just did that, and then I just kept doing it, and then all of a sudden, I don't even know when it happened, I just became a hairstylist. So I started doing like my friend's hair and kind of getting comfortable. And that era was like pinups, buns, scrunches, finger waves, pineapple curls. So we used a lot of gel and a lot of hairspray. So I would learn one style, and I do everybody that I know would have that style. And then once I perfected it, I went to another style. And then one day I was like, I'm actually good at this. Like people were like willing to pay me outside of my friend group in my neighborhood. So I was going to a high school called Tottenville. And so my friend that I befriended, she was going to a high school called Ralph McKee Vocational by the ferry. And I don't know where this comes from, but as a little girl, the conflict was I didn't have a green card. Now I am earning money, but like I'm in the 9th grade. I have 3 more years of high school. What happens to me after high school? Like I can't get financial aid because I don't have a green card. So I can't even borrow money to go to school. I can't have the complaints that other Americans have. Like Americans complain about student loans, but I wanted student loans because I wanted to be able to have an out from my environment, and I didn't have that. So I was trying to figure out how do I like not get caught up in the inner city young woman, pregnant baby mama. I was trying to figure out how I can be different. And for me, hairstyling became that way out. And McKee offered a cosmetology program. So in my head, I could go to high school, have my cosmetology license when I graduate, and work in a salon. So I was trying to, one, it was about me not having a green card and me wanting money, but then it became about, okay, so what is life after high school? Because my mom, as an immigrant, my mom didn't really have much education coming over, and the only what she always prayed for me and my sister was to finish high school, which is kind of sad because most people are like, oh, you go to college, but she wasn't even thinking that far. She just wanted us to complete what she couldn't.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what after high school life was. So that's what I was trying to resolve for that conflict. And that's really how I got into hair. It was really a survival thing. And then it grew into a passion being in the salon.
That's such a different story. Being in Dallas, I've met so many, Africans, and the stereotype is always, or the joke is always, you have to be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, like something very high earning. And I remember speaking previously with you, you had mentioned like being a hairstylist isn't necessarily like wasn't like a well respected like profession. So as your childhood, you're dealing with like all these immigrant issues and stuff. Was your mom ever like encouraging you like not to be a hairstylist, or did she, try to push you into another career at any point in time?
That is such an interesting perspective that you bring up with Africans, and I've never heard anyone even be inside of the African community to bring that perspective up. It's a little bit nuanced with me because my father is from Ghana, so I feel like certain African nations, education, profession is paramount. Nigerian culture, Ghanaian culture. So my father passed away when I was a baby. He was a professor, he was a doctor. So if I grew up with my father, that definitely would have been the pressure 100%. My mom being from Liberia, so Liberia means free slaves. Liberia is pretty much free Black people that went back. I would say, obviously we do have educated Liberians, many of them. I would say as a Liberian culture, we're more domesticated. You don't really have that pressure of becoming like, Liberia is also one of the top 13 poorest countries in the world, right? So there's not, like, they're trying to figure out how to survive, right? And we're known to be domesticated. A Liberian and Liberia specifically in Africa have a lot of similar issues to the Black community in America. It literally mirrors it. And then I had the dichotomy where Ghanaian culture, it's like there's that classism there and that hierarchy like in Nigerian culture. So I think what you just said helped shape me because I have so many perspectives and cultures. Like I grew up here, I was 2 years old, so I didn't even really know Africa. But then I grew up in an African community with Black Americans. So I was at school getting the Black American experience, at home getting the African experience. And then at some point in that neighborhood, Black people and Africans collide. Now it's like African Americans are eating palm butter and fufu and all of that, right? So my African American, and also growing up in New York, we have less of you're African, I'm American, is we Black.
Yep.
Like I was trying to be Jamaican at a certain point. You know what I mean? I wanted to be Jamaican so
everybody
bad.
had it.
Yes.
Everybody had the box braid era, like
box braid era, colors. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like when I go to New York, I just feel Black. We don't really, we talk about food and culture, but there's really not that you this and I'm that as it is when I moved to Dallas. So I didn't have that pressure. Honestly, my mom was working all the time, and her primary goal was to provide for us and keep a roof over our head. And she depended on us to go to school and to do the right thing. So I had a lot of autonomy as a child that really a child shouldn't have. And I'm really grateful to God that I feel like I was also spirit-led, because I wasn't like this perfect child who like couldn't be doing a lot of the things that I could be doing. For some reason, even if I tried my hand at certain things that was kind of bad, I didn't go too far. I like caught myself because I always remembered my mom and her sacrifice. Like I was always that child that was like, I don't want to bring disgrace to my mom or extra stress to my mom. Like she's out trying to work. And my mom did like live in. So my mom would go to people's houses for 3 to 4 days. So we wouldn't even see her. So yeah, I didn't have that pressure. Obviously my mom was disappointed that, so Tottenville High School was the top high school in Staten Island. And like you touched on, hairstyling in the inner city, specifically in the inner city, was kind of frowned upon. And me removing myself from Tottenville High School and going to McKee was also frowned upon because it was vocational. So vocational schools, which they don't hardly exist anymore, was frowned upon. It was like for misfits. It was like for
like
people
you're not
that
gonna make it in traditional
you're not gonna
schools,
make it in traditional schools. You're not going to college. You're kind of, a lot of the girls was pregnant. They were trying to get certificates to have that second win of life. So that's kind of like the stigma. Like no one was encouraging me. It wasn't like, while I was doing that and working in the salon, I also wasn't getting, you're gonna be somebody, you're gonna be great. It was just like, what are you doing? Like a lot of my other African friends that was from other cultures were becoming nurses, and they were going to another high school called Curtis because that had a night nursing program. So they were doing that. But for me, I don't know, blood and hospital, and I didn't want to become a lawyer. I feel like I can argue really well. But then when I looked into it, I'm like, lawyers, they're just kind of like professional liars. Like they go to the law. They don't go to what's right or what makes sense.
Yeah.
They're upholding a law that was written by the forefathers of this country, that was written without my forefathers' involvement and really against my forefathers. So then I had to be like, is that something I really want to upheld? Like if I get a case or a client and I'm like, I know you lying, but the law says this, and I got to go to court and get it like thrown out because somebody missed this little nuance. Like I thought about it that deeply. Honestly, for hairstyling, it wasn't even just hairstyling. It was what I got in the salon as a young Black woman that I couldn't get anywhere else. It was the conversations to older women that I was being a part of because they didn't know I was as young as I was. I was short, but I was mature. And I didn't want to make myself like a child because then they wouldn't want to pay me. So when older women would sit in my chair, they would be asking, we'd be having like conversations about life, about love. Like a lot of people go to social media now, or, therapy is a big thing in the Black community. But honestly, I was the therapist. I was judging. I knew everything that was happening. And I know who husband was sleeping with who wife. Like I knew everything. And it sounds funny, but there was also a level of responsibility for me to keep that because I didn't want to bring mess to my clients or to the salon. So it's like there's a certain level of responsibility and secrecy that you have. And when I went to that salon, it also like kept me out of trouble. I had somewhere to go. So it wasn't like I was aimless. I had a lot of time on my hands. So I feel like what I was getting in the salon far surpassed, like it wasn't just about doing hair itself. It was about all the other elements that I was learning. I couldn't put into words then, but looking back that I was getting.
Yeah, I feel like New York City is such an entrepreneurial place, right? It's like you walk out, like I'm from the Bronx, so it's like you walk out on Southern Boulevard and it's like somebody selling food, somebody selling hats, 125th Street, you got vendors, like you're just always in kind of like this hustle mentality. And I can definitely, see how that like played a part for you. As you, rose in the industry, right? You had your own salon and everything. What happened that then you were like, okay, banking is for me? Like, how did you end up like transitioning out of hair and then, going into the second half of your career?
Honestly, I knew how to do hair and I was making a lot of money at a young age, but I didn't have a plan B and I didn't have any administrative skills, and I felt insecure around people in the corporate world. My older sister was in corporate, and we had a salon in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. And my older sister would take care of all of the administrative. So in the front of the salon, we sold goods. We sold hair, hairspray, lotions. It was like a little store. And she would communicate with all the vendors. She would send, we had fax machines at that time. She'd fill out their paperwork for our order. And one day, she asked me to go fax something to one of our vendors. And I took the paper and I went to the fax machine and I didn't know how to fax. And it was that moment. It was just that simple. That was the aha moment. Like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I never had to do it before. I wake up in the morning, I come to the salon, I wash hair, I do hair, I make a lot of money, I go home. Like, is that all life is about? And so I felt like, dang, I don't know how to like do, like I was living with my mom at that time, so I hadn't moved on my own. And it was like, I don't know how to do, I don't know how to do administrative things. In a household, you gotta, it's an administration. You get your mail, you gotta get your bills, you gotta figure out, I didn't know how to do that. And so that started the seed in me that I need to either go back to school or do something else. Corporate America was circumstantial. I was just taking my then fiance to interviews because he has lost his job when we were getting married for moral support. And I took him to a company and he went back to interview and he stayed there a long time. And there was a receptionist desk and I was sitting there and me and the receptionist, we just started vibing. And we just started talking and she was asking me what I did and I told her about the salon and we were just talking. And then she was like, you should apply for the job. I was like,
the job that he was interviewing for?
Right. Well, it was customer service. So not his job per se, but a job there.
Okay.
And I looked at her like with such confusion. I was like, why would I apply for the job? I just told you I had my own salon. And she was like, you sound good. You have a good voice. I think that you would do good at this job. And I just kind of chucked it away. And then he didn't get the job. We needed health insurance. And he was carrying our health insurance. And I applied for the job and I ended up getting a call for the job. But I didn't apply for the job seriously. I just kind of did it unseriously. Like I wasn't looking for a job. I don't know why I did it. I guess it was just God. And then they ended up not giving him the job and they called me. And when he went into the company that he applied for was called Arcadia TransSouth. Never heard of it, didn't know about it. It was an auto loan company. When they called me to offer me the job, it was Citigroup. And then coming from New York, I was like, Citigroup. I remember as an immigrant, my mom, her bank account was at Citibank. And we would go to the bank. And at the time, Citibank employees would wear uniforms, kind of like flight attendants. It was like a little blue dress. And I admired them. They just looked so nice to me. Everybody was in shade. Polished. And I called my mom. I was like, I just got a job offer at Citigroup. It was such a big deal to me because, again, I had no corporate experience. Citigroup, the Citigroup. And I decided to take the job for the health insurance, but the job also came with pension, 401k, and tuition reimbursement. And so I had a problem because I had my salon. So there was another hairstylist that was from New York that I found out she was good. She had just moved from Park Hill, where I was from. Her name was Natalie. So I called her and I begged her to come and work at the salon. So what I did is I took the job at Citigroup and I convinced them to allow me to work 4 10-hour days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. Salons are traditionally closed on Sundays and Mondays. So the only days I'd be missing in the salon is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. So I had Natalie cover for me. I gave her all the clients that was okay with going with somebody else. All of the clients that specifically wanted me, I scheduled them for Fridays and Saturdays. So I'd work 6 days at Citigroup, Mondays through Saturdays, and the salon Fridays and Saturdays. So I worked 6 days a week for two years. And then I eventually sold the salon in 2004 because I started to move up with Citigroup. For me, Citigroup offered a world that I had never been exposed to. It was easy money. I sat down all day. I took calls. They gave me tuition reimbursement. So all I had to do was take a course that was aligned with the business and get A, B, C's, and they would pay it 100%. I never heard of nothing like that. My mom on her jobs never had, I was the first one in my family to have a pension. I was the first one in my family to have 401k, matching 401. So I just took advantage of it. I don't know. I just was like, let me see if this will work. I don't know why. I just did. And then Citigroup ended up promoting me to a supervisor. And then they closed down in 2006 in Minnesota and our jobs went to different cities. I interviewed for a job in Dallas and they moved me here to Dallas in 2006 as a manager. And I just kept making more and more money. I just kept moving up. It was like taking candy from a baby. Like in the call center, the work ethic that I had was unmatched, especially for my age. I can't, if the call center opened at 7 and closed at 7, I'd be in the parking lot at 6:45 while everybody else is walking in at 7:01, 7:15. 7 o'clock, I get my coffee from the break room. 7 o'clock, I'm at my desk. Boom, the first call rings in my phone, I'm taking it. If there's overtime, so my shift is 7 to 3:30. If there's overtime, I'm asking them if I can stay till 7. So now I'm working 7 to 7 when they give me overtime. You hit your goal. I think they were paying me like $12 an hour. But you hit your goal for the month, they pay you another $1,500 bonus. And then it was calculated. So I worked, it was calculated on my part because I did overtime. I hit my goal. I was always available. When the calls were slow in queue, I went to each of the supervisor and I asked them if they had any other work for me to do because I wanted to move up. I had a plan and I wanted to move up, and I wanted that. To me, it was like free money. Like, you get paid $50, $60, $70,000 to take calls. My mom made $2, $3 an hour in New York. When we moved to Minnesota, she made like $8, $9 an hour. So I never had anyone in my family. I mean, beside my sister was doing this, but not at the level that I came and did it. I was just hungry, still am to this day. I just saw potential.
I'm just like in awe of you because your foresight to be so willing, right? I feel like we're in a generation and in a time where it's like people don't want to work for free, people don't want to hustle. Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I can't be at a 9-to-5 soft life, right? And here you are, like, you were so excited about an opportunity that to some people would be less than, right? So what was it like, kind of, I guess, or did you feel a difference from like the autonomy of like having your own business to then having to like clock in for somebody else? Or were you just like, listen, the money is so good, I don't even care?
It was the potential of what I could be, because even when I own my own business, I never think of, there's no autonomy. I still have to come in 8 o'clock in the morning to meet my first client, and I wanted to be there on time. I always try to do everything out of the stereotypes. I never wanted to be that black salon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd work 8 o'clock in the morning till sometimes 11, 12 o'clock. So I work more hours. So it's like going to corporate America was easy for me. You had a time to be there and a time to be out.
And guaranteed money.
Benefits,
all that.
It was easy. I couldn't believe people were complaining. And because of the experience that I already had, I also noticed I became unrelatable to my peers, because all they would do is be complaining about everything. Policy change, something changed, and they're complaining. I'm like, but they're paying us. I don't know. I guess when you grow up, I think I would attribute it to how I grew up with my mother. My mother always says we grew up on parables that as a child I really didn't understand, but as you grow, your mother's voice starts to ring in your head. And one thing she will always say is, no condition is permanent. So for me, I'm always willing to do the work now so that I can relax later. I don't really feel, I don't have ego in the work. The work is the work. It needs to get done. So I don't come with a level of ego like, I can't do this. This is my title. I don't think about backwards or forwards. I think like, there are things that people are not willing to do that successful people do, and that's how they become successful. That's it. It's not like somebody's smarter than you. It's just that I'm willing to do some things that somebody else isn't willing to do. I'm willing to do anything. There's nothing that I'm not willing to do at all, period.
Okay, so at the beginning, you were like, welcome to my TED Talk. This is a TED Talk, okay? It's a TED Talk / sermon. Because I feel like so many entrepreneurs now, I guess we were raised, or we grew up in a time where it was like, we want things to be like a little bit easier, or we want to like relax, or, you know, we're burnt out. So we're like looking for this luxury. And then here you are like, no, I want to work even harder. I'm okay with working hard. And I wanted to have this backstory to really set up like what you've built with your brand now, because people can see and be like, oh, well, yeah, she owned a salon. It would be natural to just transition to a product line and be in Sephora and expand globally. But I think your work ethic and like who you are as a person is what sets you up for success with the brand. So now talk us through kind of how you ended up, you know, launching a product, Adwoa Beauty. Like, what did it inspire for you? Like, why did you decide to like go back to beauty after corporate?
Yeah, work ethic trumps anything. Work ethic trumps someone being more prettier than you, having a better body, a flatter tummy, more education. Work ethic trumps everything, because people that have things that should entitle them to other things come with an entitlement. I don't have any entitlements. So I think that I'll say that about work ethic. Um, you know, every stage in my life, adversity of that stage has brought me to the new level. I wasn't ever planning on, I did not want to start a product line. It wasn't my dream. So the story does sound perfect because of my background in the salon. When I came back to the natural hair community in 2012, I came back as an influencer. I went to an event in Brooklyn. A man by the name of Michael July wrote a coffee table book called Afros the Book. And I went to Brooklyn to visit a friend that I had rekindled with on Facebook. I just got Facebook around this time as well. And the event was happening in Dumbo, so I went to the event because now I'm in the natural hair community. I want to like learn about it. He put my friend that I went to visit in Brooklyn put me on to some natural hair influencers, and I went to that event and I stood in the corner. I went alone and I was just staring at everyone. Like they probably thought, what the hell is wrong with that woman? Or is she gay or something? I was just staring at Black women because I had never in my life seen Black women with hair like in the natural hair community. Yeah. Ever. Even as a hairstylist, I did relaxers and perms. I never seen
the gel swoop, the crunchy
ponytails. And then when I did see a Black woman with afro, to me it wasn't cute. It was a afro. Yes, those are cute, but that came with a political statement. Or like in New York, is some hippie Black girl with braids. It wasn't like done. It wasn't twist outs. It wasn't wash and goes. Right. When I went to Brooklyn, they had colors, you know, shave size, taper, froha. I never seen nothing like that. And I think the hairstylist came out of me and I was in awe. And the way that in the early natural hair days, the camaraderie between Black women, I had also never experienced outside of the salon. The salon, yeah. Like usually when you see a Black woman, if you don't know her, she'll know you, y'all keep it moving. But
especially with the in New York.
Yeah, but with the natural hair movement, it's like, oh, I love your twist outs. Oh, like they were complimenting each other. It was a feeling that I wanted to encapsulate. It wasn't the thing. I left New York. I came back. I big chopped. I created a blog called Bella Kinks because I wanted to be involved in the natural hair community. I wanted to be involved in it behind the scenes. I wanted to work for brands. I wanted to do marketing. I wanted to be the driving force or help other people with visions that I had. I didn't want to start a product line. So I wasn't working with all of these brands thinking, oh, let me see what I can learn so I can start my own product line. When I concepted Adwoa Beauty in 2016, I created a mock deck and I pitched it to Black brands that I was working with. You know, the first brand that I pitched it to was Curls, a lady by the name of Maisha Dillinger. I gave
She's
it
here in Dallas,
right.
Yeah.
She moved to Frisco. She was in California before, but I pitched it to Maisha. I was like, I think the natural hair community is time. It's time for an elevated brand. Like it's time for us. I was shopping at Sephora for skincare and I was buying Weed Dad in Sephora and I was seeing how it was packaged and how it was placed. And I was like, why can't we have this? Yeah. To me, you got to remember, I came into hair care in 1994. I didn't come into hair care in natural hair community. So we had prestige in the salon. We had salon brands. We had Dudley's. We had Mizani at the time was a salon brand. We had Affirm. We had brands that were prestige positioned that only stylists could have. And in the natural hair community, it wasn't that. It was just all these brands at Target, Walmart, CVS, which is fine. But I was like, we need something else. And so I created the deck and I was like, I want to be the marketing person behind the brand. I never wanted to be the face. And everyone loved it, but no one wanted to do it. They didn't want to execute I don't think, these are my words, this is not theirs, but I don't think it looked like something Black people or Black women would gravitate to because we have a very specific look in when we make things, and when things are made for us and how it looked. Right. And I was freelancing for Sally Beauty. And so I pitched it after I sat on it for a while and the Black brands weren't moving on it. I pitched it to Sally Beauty, same thing. Adwoa Beauty was started out of frustration of not seeing what I wanted to see. I woke up one morning and I just said, well, maybe I'll just do it myself. It was a creative vision that I wanted to see that I couldn't get somebody else to do. It wasn't anything that I wanted to do. I never had a dream of owning products. And for me, it's not even the products. It's the example. It's starting a black brand and having it not look stereotypical. It's being small, but not having mason jars with paper on it. Mm-hmm. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that. I just wanted to add a different conversation to the table. Like black owned and small doesn't have to mean that I'm churning butter in my kitchen.
Right.
Like we can change the narrative at any time if we want Black America. That's really, to me, what Adwoa Beauty symbolizes. It's not that we needed a new curl cream or we needed a new shampoo. So we sell shampoos and conditioners, but Adwoa Beauty is so much more than that to me, for the community, if for those who are paying attention, like I do, because I pay attention to brands, other brands. And I was always like, why don't we have that? Like, why don't we have a Glossier? Like, and it wasn't just limited to hair. It's just that I was in hair. I felt that way about restaurants. I felt that way about anything Black. Because in 2016, when I was concepting Adwoa Beauty, the movement, the D2C movement that I was seeing happening with non-Black brands, I wasn't seeing happening on the Black side. Like Away made luggages. It's luggages. But we paid $300 for a carry-on. And it's modern, and the way they brand it. And Casper, it's a mattress. It's literally a mattress. I already had a mattress, but the way they put it in a box, the way they marketed it, Farmer's Dog is dog food. So non-Black people was doing this all around, hair salons, everything. And it's like, for me, I feel like as Black people, my personal opinion is like we're stuck in time. And by the time we get a whiff of what's happening, it's already too far gone. And so I wanted to bring that into hair care. But it's everything else that Adwoa Beauty symbolizes. It's not like the community isn't asking for higher price items. As a matter of fact, they lash against it. But it's like, why don't we have a Kerastase? Why don't we have an Oribe? Why don't we have these brands that you guys are buying? Like, why is luxury by Black people only accepted by white people? Like, even when we put luxury stamp on things, it's not luxury. What is luxury? You know, can you name a Black-owned luxury, like truly luxury, not just saying it's luxury, getting the luxury experience? Do we have that? I was having those experiences. I'm now in corporate America. I'm making some money. So I'm giving myself experiences, and everywhere that I'm going, I have to leave outside of my community and my people to get it. Why? Those are questions that I have and that I would ask in my friend group that it'd be too deep or no one could answer. But those were, I don't know why God made it conflict within me. Like, I don't know why Julian Otto has to be the one to see or to experience all this, but I do. And I just don't know, like, the narrative Black people have. Like, I know how we got it. I understand systemic racism. Right. I don't understand, with all of the knowledge, all of the access, the internet, we see what the greater world is doing, and we just choose to do different. I don't get it. I always felt othered around my community, whether it was Africans or Black people. It didn't matter where they were from. I always felt like, why don't everybody see what I see? Like, why can't we have, like, even like when I bought my first house, like, why can't we have a nice Black neighborhood? Not a Black neighborhood, like a nice Black neighborhood. Like, cause like even when you go to nice Black neighborhood here in Dallas, I do it all the time. Like, sometimes I'll drive through Highland Park. Sometimes I'll drive through Duncanville or Lancaster or wherever. And it's like, why y'all don't mow y'all lawn? You know, it's like there was a certain home pride, ownership. There was a certain pride that we had. I hate to say it, during the time where we were more enslaved and laws were completely against us, that as things have gotten looser and we've gotten a little bit more freedom, it's kind of like we strayed away from it. Even community. Like, my next door neighbor was Miss Angel, Black American lady. When my mom went to work, I knock on her door and ask her if she has some sugar. She give us sugar. When she needed some flour, she come in. It's like we could do that. Now, if you do that, somebody's talking about you, or you don't know them, or they're like, well, she come ask me. It's like it was more communal when I was growing up. So it's like, how do we lose that? How do we get that back? How do we have pride in what we do and what we give and how we talk to each other, how we treat each other? You know, I love when people order from our website because they get a nice custom box. We didn't have to do custom box. Most brands get the UPS, the post office box. But I wanted the experience from me, for it to come from me and for you to know, like, I'm Black. And yes, it is Black owned. And it's so funny because they don't think we're Black owned with all of this. They always think we're not a Black owned company because of it.
Because of how it's executed.
Right.
That's so interesting. As you were talking, I was just thinking about like the cash register. It was like cha-ching, 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 packaging, boxes, you know, all that type of stuff. So how did you, because I think with a lot of small businesses, it's hard to deliver luxury because of the cost, right? So it's like, okay, like packaging costs, like it's just easier for me to just jump out there with a mason jar and throw a sticker on it because, you know, that's like lower cost versus me trying to source packaging and stuff like that. So as you were getting started, how did you end up like funding everything and like bringing it, you know, launching it in the way that you wanted it to?
But it's not more money. I think it comes down to taste, because a lot of times you're paying more than me. My thing was simplicity, which we don't do. We don't do well. We don't do simplicity well as a people. We think more is more. And for me, it was like less is more. So we got packaging and we had clear labels. We couldn't afford screen print in the beginning. Now our packaging is screen printed on. But my resolve for that was just get a clear label, and when we take pictures, it looks like it's screen printed. So I employed methods to make it look more high end. But me and you, the bottle, you're probably paying more for the mason jar off of Amazon or whatever than I'm paying for that plastic bottle. So we do the same things. You get a jar, you get a label, it's the same thing. It wasn't more at all. And that's what I was trying to show. It comes down to taste and exposure, what you want, right? As far as how I paid for it, I was freelancing.
I mean, you was rich between the doing hair, working.
I definitely was not rich.
It's giving money.
No, it is not. When I moved to Southside to start Adwoa Beauty, I had an air mattress in my apartment. That was it. I didn't even have a car when I moved down here. I was taking the train and Ubers and walking everywhere.
Okay, time out. So instead of saying, okay, I'm gonna get this Casper mattress and I'm gonna like live this luxurious life, you were like, okay, boom, I'm gonna save up my money to build this brand that I really believe in and just struggle for a little bit.
I sold my house in Little Elm. I moved back home with my mom. I didn't make any money on the house because it was, you know, newer house, newer neighborhoods, people could buy. I lived with my mom. Me, my brother, and my mom lived in a one-bedroom apartment. I did that until I was ready to launch Adwoa Beauty. When I was ready to launch Adwoa Beauty, I moved to Southside in July of 2017. We launched in October. I didn't have anything. All I had was my cell phone. I got rid of my car. I had a couple credit cards. I didn't have any expenses. My goal was to keep my personal expenses low so that I wouldn't be stressed, so I could pour everything into the business. I moved to Southside because I needed a space to do business and to live. I couldn't afford to have it separate. And I knew Southside had freight elevators that I could bring in pallets in. So that's why I moved there. So I got a one-bedroom apartment. I think the rent was like $13.50, and that was my warehouse and where I slept. So the front was all Adwoa Beauty, all products, all packaging, all freight, and I had an air mattress. I had an air mattress that I was sleeping in. I didn't have no TV. I didn't have nothing. So no, I wasn't rich. I've never been rich. I've always just sacrificed for the vision, for the goal.
Yeah, girl. I mean, wow. I can't even like fathom the humility that it takes to do something like that.
And I posted it all on social media for everyone to see. If you go back into Adwoa Beauty's on our Instagram, on the reel section in our post, I posted packaging boxes. Marka, she used to come over. I would do orders and stuff during the week. She would come over and we would shoot content, story content, videos. I'd invite people to my loft, do their hair. She'll shoot all of that. So I had someone, luckily, in my corner that had that skill set that I could utilize. And so, yeah, I showed all of that. You can see me sitting on the floor, my concrete apartment packaging orders. We just had our 6th birthday and we put together a video where when I got too many orders, my mom will come, my nephew will come and help me. I showed everything. It was vulnerable feeling, but I knew I needed to show it because a lot of time in the Black journey, like other Black women that I looked up to, you don't hear or see the journey until they make it big. Like when they're already 30,000 doors, Target doors or whatever, retail doors, millions of dollars. Then they tell you, I started off in my garage. I did this, I did that. I wanted to take people on the journey with me as it was happening. And it didn't feel comfortable. It wasn't like, there were times where she would take a picture and I'd be like, I don't want to post that. And she would, we posted anyway. She'd talk me into posting it. And I'm so glad that I did, because people miss out on a lot of entrepreneurs these days. They see the pretty pictures, the packaging and what happens, but it's a lot of sleepless nights and building and grinding. You don't make money for a while, for a long time. Like getting money and making money and having that money and retaining that money is three different things.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. We don't understand that. And the reason why we don't understand that is because nobody shows it. The minute somebody makes $1 million, they go on social media and it's a viral, oh, this person made $1 million. But no one said, okay, I made it, but I don't have it. That it went to all of these things.
Or I raised it, so it's technically not mine.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like, yeah, it's not, none of it, it's yours. If you're doing business the right way, it's not like, even when I was making money, I wasn't buying myself. I had a 1999 Hyundai Solara until 2021. And that's because my hood popped up as I was driving on 35 and I almost died. And I talked to myself and I said, okay, you can't, I have to like do a little bit better for my safety. Yeah. And I went out during the pandemic and I bought myself a new car as a gift for all the years that I sacrificed. But I'm not that CEO that was like, yeah, I buy nice things and I treat myself. I don't want to make it seem like I don't do anything, but there was a lot of sacrificing. There still is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I just want to make that very clear, because I think, you know, when we see you now, it's like, oh, it must have just been like this beautiful, rosy story. And, you know, that's not always the case. So now looking at the success that you've had now, you're about to, I know, expand and do so much with your brand. What would you tell an entrepreneur that is maybe starting out, or trying to, not just starting out, but they're trying to level up, right? And they're maybe having trouble scaling, having trouble hiring, having trouble just getting beyond being, you know, a small business. What would you say to them?
I think the market is so saturated and with social media that you have to have your why and you have to know what your North Star is to start anything. Like, I hear so many entrepreneurs that started a hair care because they had eczema. Like, it's always about what they have, but there are things for eczema on the market. Like, you're not the first. Like, it has to be more than, you have to have a purpose. You know, people are buying purpose-driven, purpose-led brands. Like, you have to have something more than just money, or something more than just, you know, because you can find everything on the market, honestly. You have to be really honest with yourself as an entrepreneur. So some of the work that I had to do, even building the brand, even marketing, is like, how am I perceived by people? Like, I had to have that honest conversation. I'm perceived a certain way. So I had to market against that, because people, I can't control how people perceive me, right? I think you just have to be really honest in your marketing and who you are as a founder. Certain founders, they're their brand. You know, they go out, they look really nice all the time. The face is beat, they're dressed in designer, they're showing the lifestyle. I knew I could do it, but that's not who I am. And that's not why I came. That's not my purpose. So I think staying true to who you are, which it sounds easy, but I think it's really hard, because sometimes who you are, you haven't even accepted, or maybe people made you feel weird, or you got teased for it. Like, people don't even know how to be who they are or how to be by themselves. And I think the true magic of people and brands that are successful today is they lean into who they are. Because nobody can be Julian Otto. Nobody can talk like me. Nobody can give the story that I just gave. Only I can do that. And so I need to, instead of like making up a story or trying to be like somebody else that I admire, it's like, I really admire that person for who they are. I can admire people for who they are and still choose to be who I am. I think sometimes when people admire things and people, they try to become that person. And I think it gets lost in translation. Authenticity in branding is really, really important, because people can snuff out the bullshit. So I think before you waste your time and money, this is so hard. Like, just make sure it's something that you know you can go the distance with, and that you're being true to yourself, because then you don't have to like think about it. You just wake up and you're just being it. That would be my advice. And it sounds easy, but I think that's the hardest thing.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because there's a lot of conversations around like build your personal brand. You know, you need to build your personal brand to launch a business, but then your personal brand and your business end up becoming entangled, and you can never separate the two, right? And it just complicates marketing. It complicates how people see the brand. So you mentioned that, you know, there were certain things that you had to like market against, right?
Sorry.
So what? No worries. What were those things that you felt like you had to market against, like when you first launched the brand, especially, you know, in hair care, that it's such a competitive industry?
Transparency. You know, I'm a direct speaker. That could be good for somebody. That could not. It could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people that don't even know me that have already think they have some perception of me. They've never talked to me. Just by the way that I move and do things, they've already. So I had to market against that. Like, being transparent to me is marketing against that. Who I am as a person, I'm reserved. I'm quiet. I'm not. I'm very friendly, but I'm not like this person that, like I'm not flamboyant. I'm more one-on-one. Like if we were at an event, I'd probably have one or two people talking in the corner. I wouldn't be the life of the event. And that's just my personality. But if you talk to me or you ask me for something, I'd give it. But a lot of times people come with their own perspectives and their own insecurities of how they think you are, or even how they are, and they're projecting that onto you. So for the way that I had been perceived in my previous brands and in my previous life, I was like, okay, this is how I think people view me. So let me come at it this way for them to get to know me a little bit more, for them to see how I really am. So more or less those things, like our lowercase letters, you know, we are transparent. We're saying pretty serious things, but lowercase letters is generally more playful, you know, so we decided to do that. You know, my favorite color is blue, but I would always gear towards like a navy blue. And I wanted the brand to be gender neutral. So I was like, okay, this is like a powdery blue. It's not like to a certain gender. So a lot of Adwoa Beauty, even Adwoa, that's my name. That's my name in my dad's culture. You know, in Akan people culture, they name after the day of the week they were born. But for me, Adwoa symbolizes Black people, Black Americans, Africans, and Caribbeans, because we have Ghanaian people in Jamaica. They're called the Maroons. We have African Americans here that went through the slave trade and, you know, came through Ghana. So, you know, it was just kind of my own little symbolism. I didn't blast it out to everybody, but it was like I have all these different identities, all these different communities within me, that sometimes when you go online, people are like parsing it out and fighting against themselves, and this side is for this side. But I'm like, I was born in Africa. I grew up in an African community. I understand Black culture. I have Black friends. We all the same. We all do the same shit differently. And everybody thinks one person is better or this person is better, or, you know, oh, I can't do it like this, because America has spent a lot of time writing the narrative for Black culture. And I'm glad that I get to see that for myself and go out there. And so I just find like Black people are just Black people. That's it. Like even the foods are so similar. It might be seasoned different, more, you know, because Americans had to, like, you know, they had Africa, or, you know, stripped away from them. They had their culture stripped away from them. So they came to a new land. They might have remixed something, but it came from something else. You know, like when I go to the South, when I go to South Carolina, I had a customer in Minnesota in my salon. This lady sat in my salon. It was the first time that I ever heard it. And she said that she was African American, and I swore that she was lying to me. She sounded like she was Liberian, and I never heard anybody sound like that before. But she was from the the Africans that are in South Carolina to this day. They still have that. I think it's Gutcha-Gili tribe. And she was telling me all about her tribe and everything that they did, the okra, everything. It's like, that's how we eat, because Liberians in Africa eat like Black people, because the Black people that were here went over to Liberia. So it's remixed. It's like half indigenous people, half African American culture. Like even we speak English. Like Liberians don't look African. Like my dad, he looked Ghanaian. He got the slices on his face. Certain tribes in Africa, certain cultures, certain Nigerians, Ghanaians, they have an authentic look. But Liberians, my friend looked like you. My sister is like light skinned. My mom has green eyes. So it's like we're like truly the black people of Africa. And then having to come up in America where it's like black people are telling me to go back to Africa. And I'm like, that's kind of complicated. We're so divided, but we're really the same. And I'm able to see that. So I just wanted to bring everybody together in my own way.
And you did that. So thank you so much for sitting down with us today. Your story is incredible, and I really hope that it inspires a lot of entrepreneurs who might be feeling like, they're on their air mattress, discouraged, and like, they're never gonna make it through, to really just keep pushing, because I think if there's anything that I've learned from this interview is, like you said, work ethic really just trumps so many of the things that we feel are against us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.